Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new here. Glad you made it. Today we're talking about age of consent laws in the US. Buckle up. It's important to understand. We'll break it down state by state. Stick around because this is important stuff. Alright, let's kick things off down south in Alabama. Alabama's known for its southern hospitality and beautiful beaches. The age of consent here is 16. Legally, adults can engage with someone 16 or older. But remember, legal doesn't always mean right. Consider maturity and emotional readiness. We're talking about real people, not just numbers. Be respectful, responsible, and think things through. From Alabama's charm, let's head north to Alaska, the last frontier, land of glaciers and wildlife. The age of consent in Alaska is 16. An adult can consent with someone 16 or older. But the law is just one piece of a complex puzzle. Consider maturity, emotional development, and power dynamics. Legal doesn't always mean okay, right? Alright, moving on from the land of the midnight sun, we find ourselves in Arizona, home to the Grand Canyon and some strict laws. You need to be 18 for consensual relations. Dating a sophomore as a senior, you could be breaking the law. We're talking serious legal trouble. The age of consent is there for a reason, so young lovebirds maybe stick to holding hands. Next up, we're heading to Arkansas, also known as the natural state. The age of consent here is 16. Both must be 16 or older, but hold your horses. Respect and communication are key. Good advice anywhere. Moving on. Alright, California, the Golden State. Sunshine, beaches, Hollywood, and an age of consent of 18. You gotta be a full-fledged adult to be getting busy in California. They take their sunshine and consent laws seriously. Under 18, stick to surfing and stargazing. Nothing wrong with that. Plenty of time for romance later. Focus on school, dreams, and fun. Okay, up next we're heading to Alright, so we're heading to Colorado, the Centennial State, beautiful mountains, craft breweries, and a higher age of consent. Here, you gotta be at least 17 years old. Double check those birthdays for your ski trip. It's just 1 year above the national average. Stay on the right side of the law. In Colorado, 17 is the magic number. Enjoy those Rocky Mountain highs responsibly. Next up, we're taking a trip to Connecticut, the Constitution State. Known for its rich history and beautiful fall foliage, the age of consent here is 16, pretty standard in the land of nutmeg and Yale. Alright, next state coming right up. Okay folks, we're hopping over to Delaware, the first state. First to ratify the Constitution, and they like to be first in setting a higher age of consent too. Delaware's age of consent is 18, unlike its neighbor Connecticut. Keep that in mind for cross-border trips. Delaware's beaches like Rehoboth and Bethany are beautiful. Maybe not the best places to meet your future spouse if you're under 18. On to the next state. Alright, moving down the coast, we find ourselves in Florida, the Sunshine State. You might think with all that sunshine, the laws are loose. Nope, Florida takes this seriously. The age of consent is strictly 18, no exceptions, no Romeo and Juliet clauses. So, whether you're a resident or just visiting, remember 18 is the magic number. Alright, let's move on to the next state. Next up, we're heading over to Georgia, the Peach State. Georgia's known for its hospitality, history, and delicious peaches. But the age of consent here is 16. Yep, 16. Every state has its own laws, so respect them. Knowledge is power. Stay informed. Pack your bags, we're heading to paradise, Hawaii, sun, surf, beautiful beaches, what's not to love? But before you sip Mai Tais, let's talk Hawaii's age of consent laws. It's 16 years old, yep, even in paradise, important to know and follow the laws. Soak up the sun, enjoy the waves, and remember 16 is the age of consent in Hawaii. Moving on from the Aloha State to the Gem State, Idaho. You might think Idaho is laid back, right? But Idaho's age of consent laws mean business. Strictly 18 years old. Dating someone younger? Just don't. It's not worth the risk. Better safe than sorry. We're here to understand, not judge. On to the next one. Next up, we're heading to the land of Lincoln, Illinois. Known for its windy city and deep dish pizza, Illinois has an interesting take on the age of consent. Here, the magic number is 17. Yep, 17 years old, on to the next state. From the land of Lincoln, we're cruising on over to Indiana, home of the Hoosiers. Indiana keeps it straightforward. The age of consent is 16. If you're 16 or older, you're good to go. Always be respectful and responsible. Let's move on to the next state, shall we? Welcome to Iowa, the Hawkeye State. Iowa keeps things straightforward. The age of consent, 16, just like Missouri. Remember, these are basics. Don't rely solely on this video. Do your own research. Stay informed, Iowa. Next up, we're heading over to the Sunflower State, Kansas. Kansas sets its age of consent at 16 years old. Remember, age of consent laws are just one piece of a larger puzzle. There's a lot more to consider in relationships and the law. We've still got a lot of ground to cover. From sunflowers to bluegrass, we're moseying on over to Kentucky, the bluegrass state. Famous for horses, bourbon, and age of consent laws. Kentucky sets the age of consent at 16. Wondering if a state will shake things up? Stay tuned, my friend. Hey everyone, welcome back to our deep dive into age of consent laws across the U.S. Today we're landing in Louisiana, the Bayou State. Think jazz music, beignets, and strict age of consent laws. Louisiana sets the age of consent at 17. Stay informed, stay safe, and let's move on to our next state. All right, folks, we're trading in the bayou for some lobster rolls as we head north to Maine, the Pine Tree State. It's beautiful up here, you guys. Maine's age of consent is 16. Under 16, consent is not legally valid. Age differentials matter in relationships. When in doubt, err on the side of caution. Enough about laws. Who's up for some clam chowder? Just me? Okay, moving on. Hey guys, welcome back. We're cruising down the coast to Maryland, home of crab cakes and age of consent laws. Maryland's age of consent is 16. Yep, 16. Stay tuned as we roll through the states, knowing the law keeps you safe. All right, so we're moving on to Massachusetts, land of clam chowder, Harvard University, and a complex legal history. The age of consent in Massachusetts, 16. Yep, you heard that right. Surprising for buttoned-up New England, huh? Every state's got its own story. Always double-check the law. Legal misunderstandings are the last thing anyone needs. Let's move on to the next state. Next up, we're heading west to the Great Lakes State, Michigan, home of Motown and the Motor City. 16 is the magic number here, folks. Consistency is key, right? But laws can change, so stay informed. We're talking about serious stuff here. Do your own research. Let's keep this train moving to our next state. Buckle up, we're headed to Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes and a clear age of consent law, 16. It's consistent here, kind of refreshing, right? But remember, every situation is different. Nuance is everything. Be responsible, respectful, and informed. Enough preaching for now. Let's move on to the next state. Stay tuned. All right, so we're moving on down south to Mississippi, the Magnolia State. Mississippi, known for its blues music and beautiful coastline. Let's talk about the age of consent. In Mississippi, it's 16 years old. There's also a close-in-age exemption. It applies if both are over 14 and within 3 years of age. Always consult a legal professional if unsure. Next up, we're heading to Missouri, the Show Me State, famous for its barbecue, its jazz music, and its age of consent laws. In Missouri, the age of consent is 17. Once someone turns 17, they can legally consent to sexual activity. Missouri has a close-in-age exemption, but it's tricky. It's important to be aware of the laws in your state and any state you might find yourself in. Welcome to Big Sky Country, Montana. The age of consent here is 16. There's a close-in-age exemption. Both must be at least 14 with no more than a 4-year age difference. Stay informed, Montana. Hey everyone, buckle up. Next stop, Nebraska. You know, the one shaped like a brick? Yeah, that one. Nebraska's age of consent is 16. No confusing loopholes or exceptions here. Remember, this is for educational purposes only. For specific questions, reach out to a legal professional. Enjoy the ride through the Cornhusker State. All right, folks, we're heading to the dazzling lights of Nevada, land of casinos, shows, and laws. Today, we're focusing on the age of consent. Nevada sets its age of consent at 16. Even in Sin City, laws apply. Consult a qualified attorney for specifics. Let's move on to our next state. Hey everyone, we've traded the desert heat for the crisp air of New Hampshire. Get ready for stunning fall foliage, charming towns, and a look at their age of consent laws. New Hampshire sets their age of consent at 16. No need for a complex legal dictionary here. Whether hiking or enjoying maple syrup, the law is the law. This video is informational, not legal advice. For specific questions, consult a legal professional. They're the experts. All right, on to our next state. All right, we're moving on down the coast to New Jersey, the Garden State, home of Springsteen, Bon Jovi, and a whole lot of traffic. Let's talk about their age of consent laws. In Jersey, it's 16 years old. 16 is the legal age of consent. Below that, serious legal trouble. Laws vary by state. Always be aware of local laws. Next up, we're heading southwest to the land of enchantment, New Mexico. Beautiful deserts, amazing food, and a whole lot of history. We're here to talk about the age of consent in New Mexico. The age of consent is 17 years old. Anyone under 17 cannot legally consent. This law protects minors. Be aware of the age of consent. From the land of enchantment to the city that never sleeps, New York City, the pizza, the Empire State Building, the whole 9 yards. Know the rules, especially the age of consent. In New York, it's 17 years old. Under 17 cannot legally consent. It's crucial to be aware and make responsible choices. Stay safe out there, folks. All right, moving down south, we find ourselves in North Carolina, the Tar Heel state. North Carolina's age of consent is 16 years old. Legally, anyone 16 or older can consent to sexual activity. But remember, legality doesn't always mean it's right. Always ensure everyone feels comfortable and safe. Next up, let's head north to North Dakota, the Peace Garden state. In North Dakota, the age of consent is 18 years old. Anyone under 18 cannot legally consent to sexual activity. Understand the laws in each state, especially age of consent. This is a general overview, not legal advice. Our next stop is Ohio, the Buckeye state. The age of consent here is 16. 16 or older can legally consent. Ohio has close-in-age exemptions. These laws protect close-in-age relationships. Legal age doesn't always mean ethical. Respect and communication are crucial. All right, we're moseying on down to Oklahoma, the Sooner State. You know, cowboys, open ranges, that kind of thing. In Oklahoma, the age of consent is 16. Yep, 16. Which means, legally speaking, you can be riding off into the sunset of a relationship at that age. Next stop, Oregon. Land of hipsters and craft breweries. In Oregon, you gotta be 18 for romantic endeavors. They're all about making sure everyone's ready. Plenty of young love among the Douglas fir trees. Oregon's drawing a line in the sand. Okay, folks, we're headed to the Keystone State, Pennsylvania, home of the Liberty Bell, cheesesteaks, and a younger age of consent. In Pennsylvania, the age of consent is 16, which, when you think about it, kind of makes sense. I mean, this is the birthplace of America, right? Land of the free, home of the brave. All right, we're diving into New England, folks. Rhode Island, the ocean state, might be small, but it's got some big implications. The age of consent in Rhode Island is 16 years old. 16 or older can legally consent to sexual activity. Remember, we're talking about state law here. Rhode Island has no Romeo and Juliet laws. Be responsible, be safe, and make good decisions. Let's head to South Carolina, the Palmetto State, where the tea is sweet and the beaches are even sweeter. But we have serious business to discuss. In South Carolina, the age of consent is 16. It's important to know the laws. Laws protect people. Be smart, be respectful. Let's move on to the next state. Welcome to South Dakota, home of Mount Rushmore. Today, we're discussing age of consent laws. Here it's 16. 16 and older, good to go. Be responsible, be respectful. Onward. Welcome to Tennessee, the volunteer state, known for music, history, and barbecue. Age of consent here is 18, so be mindful of that. Always do your research. Howdy, folks. We're in Texas now, the Lone Star State. Everything's bigger in Texas, right? The age of consent here is 17. Each state has its own laws, so know them. If unsure, look it up or ask someone who knows. Better safe than sorry. Let's mosey on to our next state. Next stop, Utah, home to the Great Salt Lake and stunning red rock formations. Utah's age of consent is 18. These laws protect people. Know and respect them. Onwards and upwards. All right, moving on to Vermont, the Green Mountain State, famous for its maple syrup and Bernie Sanders. The age of consent here is 16. Legally, 16-year-olds can consent to sexual activity. Always check specifics and consult a lawyer if unsure. Moving on. Next up, we're heading south to Virginia, the Old Dominion, land of presidents, historical landmarks, and a slightly higher age of consent. Yep, in Virginia, the age of consent is 18 years old, so unlike Vermont, you gotta be a little older to legally consent here. Why the difference between states? Each has its own history and culture. It's something to be aware of, especially if you're traveling. Maybe knowing this will make you popular at trivia night. You're welcome. Okay, folks, we're hopping over to the Pacific Northwest to the Evergreen State, Washington, home of grunge music, Starbucks, and another 16-year-old age of consent. In Washington, you must be at least 16 to legally engage in sexual activity. Knowing the age of consent laws is crucial, especially when traveling. It's about protecting yourselves and others. All right, on to the next state. All right, we're moseying on over to West Virginia, the Mountain State, known for its beautiful Appalachian Mountains and coal mining history. The age of consent here is 16 years old. It's legal for an adult to have consensual relationships with someone 16 or older. Remember, laws vary by state, and this isn't legal advice. For specific questions, consult a legal professional, and maybe learn a fun fact about West Virginia. All right, we're moving on to Wisconsin, home of the Green Bay Packers and some pretty strict age of consent laws. You gotta be 18 years old in Wisconsin. It's interesting how these laws vary so much from state to state. You'd think there'd be a national standard, right? But nope. So if you're in Wisconsin, make sure they're at least 18. You don't want to run afoul of the law. That's some serious cheddar. Next up is Wyoming, known for its stunning landscapes. Wyoming's age of consent is 16. At 16, you're considered old enough to consent. It's important to be informed. Remember, there are still laws about power imbalances. Make sure everything's cool on all sides. Well, folks, that's it. We've covered all 50 states and their age of consent laws. Remember, knowing your state laws is crucial. If unsure, consult a trusted adult or legal professional. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. See you next time.